Hey everyone! Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing another recent reads wrap up and upcoming TBR. So I do have 6 books to talk about with you today, and I am on a roll this month with my quality of books that I've been picking up. I have 3 5 stars in a row. I don't think that that's happened in years. I truly don't remember the last time I had 3 5 stars in a row. So I have so many awesome books to chat with you about today. But before we get into the books, I would like to thank this video's sponsor, which is Atlas Coffee Club. I was so excited at the opportunity to work with them. I think that this is one of the coolest ideas. I absolutely love it. It is a monthly coffee subscription box where every month we'll get a curation of the world's best single origin coffee. You'll get a postcard from each month's country, tasting notes and coffee history for each batch, and a coffee match guarantee. You either love your coffee or you get the next one for free. And so the coffees that you receive are from all over the world. And no matter what type of coffee maker that you like, what type of coffee you like, you will find something for you. So they ask, first of all, what is your coffee type preference? If you use the coffee pods for a Keurig, or if you like ground coffee or whole bean, and then you'll select your ground type. So do you use pour over? Do you use French press, a drip machine? And then finally, your actual roast preference. So do you like light to medium, espresso roasts, all roasts? So I love how this subscription box can be tailored for any coffee drinker. And then you can select how many bags you'd like per shipment. So if you want a double bag or a single or a half bag. The prices are super reasonable, about the same price that you would pay for any sort of bag of coffee from the grocery store. And I think that the quality of the coffee is unbelievable. I received the Tanzania and the Papua New Guinea coffees, and I am obsessed. They are so good. They've also had coffee from Costa Rica, Ethiopia, India, Colombia. So you're gonna find coffees that you cannot find anywhere else with Atlas. And since it is almost the holiday season, they also offer gifting options. So if you have a coffee drinker in your life that you think would absolutely love this, you can gift them a subscription to Atlas, which I think is such a clever gift idea. Again, I am so excited to be working with Atlas. I absolutely love their coffees, and I think what they're doing is so cool and different. And as someone who needs a cup of coffee to function throughout my day, I am a big fan of their product. I'm going to link all of the information for them down below if you want to check them out. And they did include a special offer for you all. So if you use my code jessicamaebooks, you get 50% off of your first coffee order and free shipping on your first month of coffee. So I think that that is an unbelievable deal. And thank you to Atlas Coffee Club once again for working with me on today's video. So now let's get to talking about the books. All right, so with these recent reads wrap-ups, I always go in the order of my enjoyment, and I unfortunately have 2 DNFs. But don't worry, once we get past the DNFs, it is really, really good books from there. So the first of the DNFs is a big bummer, because I was really excited about this one. It's The Hurricane Wars by Tia Guanzon. So this is a fantasy romance that I thought had such an awesome pitch. It is following 2 main characters who are on opposite sides of this war that is tearing this country apart, and they essentially have kind of like an enemies to lovers romance. And for me, I don't know what I was really expecting that I didn't get, but I think I was expecting more romance or more like fun angst, and what I got instead was actually quite a lot of heavy fantasy world building at the beginning of this book, where you're taking a really long time to just figure out what's going on in this world, how the magic works. And the way that the world building was executed was just not my favorite. It was a lot of just very kind of dense info dump type descriptions of this world and the magic. And when we did get interactions between the 2 main characters at the beginning of this book, it felt very cringy, corny. It wasn't for me. I didn't love their dialogue. I found it a little like corny. Really sad because I was really, really excited for this one. And I do think a lot of people have been really enjoying this. So please take my opinion with a grain of salt because I am not a big fantasy romance fan. I just thought that maybe this one would be different for me because of the tropes it's playing with and that two opposite sides of the war and this kind of forbidden enemies to lovers romance. I don't know, that sounded really good to me, but the execution just was not resonating with me at all. So I'm really bummed. So I gave it about 100 pages and was just like, no, this is not going to be for me, unfortunately. So that was a bummer. And then my second DNF is a complete shocker, and I actually just decided to DNF it today after a lot of going back and forth. It is Layer of Dreams by Libba Bray. If you saw my last recent reads wrap up, you'll know that The Diviners, the first book in this series, I gave 5 stars. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I thought the audiobook for it was incredible. I loved how creepy it was. I liked the characters and the atmosphere. This one, I went ahead and started the audiobook as soon as I finished the first one because I was so excited to continue on. The audiobook is pretty long because this book is really long. And what I was finding was we were introduced to several new characters in this book, and I didn't love the new characters. And then we are following a plot with like a sleeping sickness, like it's very much like dream walking type magic, and it wasn't as like creepy or scary. Like I wasn't feeling the like kind of scary factor that I was getting from the first book that I loved so much. And it was just really dragged out. Like I was just really bored, which is shocking because I loved the first book so much. So every time I would have an opportunity to listen to the audiobook, I would be like, I really don't want to though. And I would like put it off. And eventually today I was like, you know what? If I am feeling that strongly about not wanting to pick this audiobook back up, I think that's a sign that I just need to put this down and it's just not for me. I, again, love that first book so much, so I'm shocked that I'm DNFing this book and this series, but I think I'm just gonna have to accept that like the first book was great. I'm so glad I read it. I'm so glad I have it, but the series as a whole will probably not be for me. So yeah, what a bummer. Because I was expecting this series to like be amazing for me after that first book. So I am completely shocked. All right, but now let's get to the books that I actually did finish. And the first one, I can't talk about it too much because it is for my Patreon book club and we haven't had the live show for it yet. And that is where we chat live about how we felt about this book. But I did finish it and I'll at least give you some high-level thoughts and my star rating. And that is The Library at Mount Char by Scott Hawkins. How do I describe this book? This is a fantasy horror that follows a group of characters who live at this library with someone they call the Father. And the Father is kind of described as almost like a godlike being who's kind of in charge of this library. And each of the characters that live with this Father figure have certain abilities. And you're following these characters as they have been kind of banned from the library. They can't go home because there's this curse upon it, and their father is missing, so they don't know really what happened, and so they're trying to break this curse on their library so that they can go home. And I thought that this book was one of the weirdest books I've ever read, but in a good way. Like it was something where I didn't really know what was going on, but I was kind of into it anyway. And that is not something that is usually my cup of tea. I really don't like being confused when reading, but this book was written in such a way where the writing style itself wasn't confusing or convoluted. It was just the events that were going on were just like strange. So I was like able to follow what was going on, but I was like, I don't know why any of this is going on, but I'm here for it. I wanted to know more about this mystery, and the characters themselves are an interesting bunch. So there's a lot in this book that happens that is very strange, but I was kind of here for it the whole time. So at the end of the day, I don't really know how I felt about this. I gave it 4 stars because I was kind of into it when I was reading it. I was like, yeah, I'm actually enjoying this. But I, at the end of the day, don't really know like what I read. So I had mixed feelings, but I liked it. Like, I really liked it. Yeah, it was weird. What a weird one. And then the last 3 books I have are all 5 stars. So this was the last 3 books that I've read, and I'm just obsessed with each and every one of them. So I don't know how to rank them, so I'm not going to. This is in no particular order from here. So I'm just going to grab the first one, and that is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I've heard a ton of mixed reviews on this one, and I was like, no, I'm still going to give it a try because I love Grady Hendrix. I have loved almost everything I've read by Grady Hendrix, and this was no exception. I loved this. I can see why it has mixed reviews. It's not scary. It's a little bonkers. It's not a little, it's a lot bonkers. And so if you're looking for like a scary horror book, this is not it. This one definitely requires a suspension of disbelief, and it's just wild. The things that happen in this book that are terrifying are crazy. And what I love about Grady Hendrix is his character work is always top notch. So in My Best Friend's Exorcism, you had an unbelievable best friend ship that you were following that I loved. In the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires, you were following kind of like a mother book group that I loved. And then in this one, you're following a brother and sister, and their dynamic I loved. I loved it so much. And at the beginning of the book, I was like definitely on one person's side, and you just find yourself going back and forth on who is in the right, who's in the wrong. And at the end of the day, this brother and sister relationship is just so messy, but so wonderful. And I loved it. And I think because I was so invested in the characters, Grady Hendrix got me so invested right away in this brother and sister. Because I was so invested in them, all the rest of what followed, I was just like here for. And the twist at the end of like what's happening with everything is just wonderful. I loved the twist and the discovery of where all this came from. So like, is this scary? No, it did not really scare me at all, but was it such a fun time? Absolutely. It was so much fun. I love Grady Hendrix. I really do. So if you're just looking for a bonkers, good old time with some haunted puppets, look no further than How to Sell a Haunted House. It's great. It's great. I loved it. The next 5-star I have is The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mondana, and this was perfection. This was the coziest, sweetest little book. I loved this from start to finish. This is one where I was listening to the audiobook for it, and it was kind of like, while I was not listening to Layer of Dreams, I was listening to this one, and I was like, okay, I'm not just in a slump with audiobooks because I am obsessed with listening to this audiobook. Anytime I had an opportunity to listen to this, I did. I grabbed it because I loved this book. You're following a character who is a witch, and in this world, witches are few and far between, and the ones that do exist want to stay in hiding because they're afraid of the public's reaction if people were to discover that witches existed. So they very much keep to themselves. They're afraid of connecting with other witches. They don't want too much magic and power in one place, so they very much keep to themselves. So you're following a main character who her whole life she's kind of grown up in isolation, not really having anyone to look after her, and so she gets the opportunity to work for this home that is secretly housing 3 young witches, and they figure out that our main character is a witch, and they want our main character to teach the 3 young girls how to use their magic. And it is just so cute. It's so cute. If you like The House in the Cerulean Sea, you will love this book. It's so cute. Oh my gosh. Like the three young witches, I absolutely loved. I loved how magic worked in this world and how the witches kind of existed and how their magic worked. I absolutely loved. And I loved our main character so much and how much she loved being a witch. Oh my gosh. It was just the sweetest thing. It made me want to be a witch. Like, I want to do magic. So I just, and I loved the romance in this book. It's actually, I think this book is categorized as a romance, I want to say. But I mean, the romance was great, but that wasn't even my favorite part of the book. I just loved all of it. And the romance was fantastic. Like the conflict that arose just made sense and like wasn't annoying miscommunication type conflict. It like everything made sense, and the highs and lows we go through with this character were just beautifully done, and I loved every second of this book. So I can't wait to read more from this author because I'm obsessed with this book. It is so good. So if you like House in the Cerulean Sea, if you like that kind of cozy book, what are you waiting for? Go pick this up. I'm so glad I picked it up during this fall season. It's a perfect fall read. Last 5-star book I have is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. Oh my gosh, you all, oh, this is so good. It was so good. I love a good psychological horror. I love it. One that just plays with your mind the whole time you're reading it. And this one did not disappoint. I was just thrown for an absolute loop throughout this whole book. It was just full of twist after what in the world, oh my gosh, moments. I loved it. I loved every second of this. The best pitch I have for you is you are following a serial killer, you're following a girl who is captured by the serial killer, and you're following a cat. And you think you know this story, but you do not. And that is it. That's all I want to say, because the less you know about this book going into it, the better. It is so juicy, so wonderful. It is very dark, so make sure to check the content warnings, but oh my goodness, is it delicious. It's just so well done, and it just turns every trope on its head where you think you know something and you just don't, and how you feel at things at the end of this book is just completely different than how you feel at the beginning of them. And I just was blown away by this. Blown away. Loved it. So those are all the books that I read recently. So now let's talk about the books that I plan on reading next. So I broke my TBR a little bit because I was just mood reading during October and was so in the mood for some spooky reads. And I think I'm gonna allow myself to continue to mood read. So I can tell you I'm currently reading Griever's Blood by Alexander Darwin, which is the sequel to The Combat Codes, which I absolutely loved. And I'm only about 100 pages into Griever's Blood so far. And so far I'm enjoying it. So I'm definitely going to keep reading this one and hopefully finish it by the time I do this next recent reads wrap up. Something would have to go very, very wrong with my schedule for me to not have this done very soon. I am then doing a video of reading some of my patrons' favorite reads from this past year to see if their favorites end up becoming some of my favorites. So that is a whole nother separate TBR that I'm not going to include in these videos because I'm going to leave it as a surprise for that video project. But that project will probably take up some of my time and will probably take up some of my TBR space. So I'm kind of allowing myself to read a little bit more slowly with stuff outside of that TBR. And I'm trying to prioritize some sequels because I am now in the middle of several series that I want to be done with. I want to be done with these series. One of those is The Empire of Gold by S.A. Chakraborty. This is one that I started and then I just had to stop because I had to start reading some book club books and then I didn't pick it back up. So I need to go back to this and start reading it. I only got about 100 pages in, so I really need to pick this one up. So that's the second one that I'm planning on reading. Tyranny of Faith by Richard Swan. This is another one that I had started a while ago and then had gotten sidetracked and needed to read some other stuff and just hadn't come back to it. So these are like the sequels that I'm very much prioritizing, would love to get done before the end of this year. The fourth book I have on this TBR is Wildwood Magic by Willa Reese. This one was sent to me for review by Orbit, and this is one that I thought just sounded like such a perfect fall read. It, I think, follows like witches on an apple orchard. I mean, my goodness. So I really wanted to read this in the fall season, so would love to pick this one up in November. And then of course I have my November book club pick for my Patreon book club, and that is God Killer by Hannah Kaner. This is a very short one, thank goodness. So I'm very excited to get to this one. I've heard great things, and I think we're gonna have a ton of fun reading it all together in the Patreon. So those are the 5 books, along with Griever's Blood, that I need to read in the upcoming weeks, maybe months, and then I will be reading some other stuff for that video project I'm doing. So what is the last book that you absolutely loved, and what is the next book that you are excited to read? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you'd like to, and I will see you all in my next one. Bye!